Welcome to episode 40 of the Animorphs Read Along broadcast. Today we are talking about book 35, The Proposal. So I guess Applegate liked book 12, The Reactions, so much that she decided to put it out again. I mean, I love this book and I love book 12, but it needs to be said, the books are basically the same. Both feature an Animorph, the narrator unable to control their morphs, and the plots both center around stopping a celebrity who's recruiting for the sharing. Both books end in a TV studio where the celebrity in question has a freak out on live television that damages their career. It's the same book. So Marco's dad has been dating, and apparently it's getting quite serious, to the point where he's thinking about marrying this woman, Nora, who is a math teacher at Marco's school. Book 30 ended with Marco in a pretty bad way. He was devastated at the loss of his mom, didn't leave his bed for like a week, but in the books that followed, we've pretty much just seen Marco back to usual. This is the book where we really get to see the fallout from book 30. Since they didn't find a body, Marco's not 100% sure that his mom is dead. He is struggling with seeing his dad moving on when he's like, but mom might come home. Like, there's still a chance that we're gonna get our happy ending. But obviously he can't tell his father that. Although I'm not sure about the plausibility of Marco being the first one and the only one to ever experience this kind of weird emotional morphing. I do think that it makes sense for Marco to be in this place. And I also just feel like the last 5 books in general have kind of been about the Animorphs in their own ways, all losing it a little bit. We saw Jake totally break down and lose his capacity to lead in 31. In 32, Rachel's psyche literally splits into 2 different people. In book 33, Tobias is psychologically and physically tortured and like loses himself. And then 34 to a lesser extent, but I do feel like these 5 books are kind of like the breakdown books. We're over halfway through this thing, the cracks are starting to show in these kids. This book kind of harkened back to those days when Marco's dad was just a broken shell of a person. And I like that this book addresses how hard that period of time was for Marco and how formative it probably was in a lot of ways, because Marco had to just grow up and do the things that his dad was supposed to be doing. And that definitely played a huge role in shaping Marco's character. Cassie is trying to sort of like play psychotherapist, and she goes over to talk to him and she says, Marco, for 2 years after your mom died, or at least everyone thought she was dead, your dad totally fell apart. You were the man of the house. No one was there to take care of you. Cassie goes on to basically say, like, it's no wonder you're having a hard time and you don't need to feel embarrassed about that. Marco feels like he doesn't have the right to like lose it because everyone in the Animorphs has problems, and I like the way he gives voice to this. He says, Cassie, everyone here has problems. Axe is the only member of his species within 1 trillion miles who's not a controller. You're a pacifist who spends half her time battling aliens. Jake is just a dumb jock trying to play General Eisenhower. Rachel is about 3 millimeters away from morphing permanently into the Terminator, and oh, by the way, Tobias is a bird who lives in a tree and eats mice for breakfast. We all have problems. We're not exactly the poster children for Mental Health Week. This book also addresses like one of the smaller tragedies, I guess, of this war, which is that the Animorphs are becoming more distant from their families and spending less and less time with them. There's this really like sad moment at the beginning when Marco is supposed to be hanging out with his dad, and his dad has like set time aside for it to be like Marco time, and Marco has to run off for an Animorphs related thing. And those are the small sacrifices that they're making all the time. Continuity issue. In the past, it has been implied that Axe could not thought speak while he was in human morph, which I thought never made any sense, but recently in book 33 and in this book, suddenly he can thought speak while in human morph, which once again makes sense, but definitely like was not the case in the past. It almost catches you off guard that Marco's the one having this sort of deep emotional problem, and it's really sweet the way that Cassie keeps trying to like be there for him. But in the end, it's Jake who figures out the key to Marco, which is to say, suck it up, think about your philosophy, life is either a tragedy or a comedy, believe that and live it, and stop whining. It works for Marco, it kind of wakes him up, and he's able to move past his issues. The wedding at the end was super sweet, and I loved that all the Animorphs were there, and Axe had been practicing his small talk, and Rachel cried during the ceremony. It was just like a really nice, happy, warm, and fuzzy scene. This book ends on quite the cliffhanger, with Marco getting a phone call from his mom. So she is alive, and her story is going to be told in Visser, which I have actually never read, so I am super excited. So yeah, those are all my thoughts about Animorphs number 35, The Proposal. The next book is, like I said, Visser. If you want to keep up with this read along, subscribe to this channel or follow me on Twitter, and I will see you on Thursday.